that I think we're at the point now that this has been declared a pandemic, that it's virtually impossible to contain it.
I guess Rudy Gobert had tested positive. That game was suspended right before tip-off. The Sacramento game was suspended.
I hate to say it. Like I said, I probably shouldn't say it because I work for CBS. I think we're going to have to shut down March Madness until we know more.
Okay, so we won the last game of the season, so we're officially champs. So I'll take your questions now.
Yes, I do know the NBA has had various lockouts over the course of its history. We've seen lockouts that extended for months even. But they were negotiated before the season started. However, this time, it's different. This is not a lockout. We've never seen the NBA suspend the season while the season was going on. This is uncharted territory for the NBA, for the players, for the fans. It's unprecedented. And as of right now, it's been suspended indefinitely. We don't know when or if this season will even continue. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and in this video, I'm gonna talk about 3 possible outcomes of this season that could possibly happen after the NBA starts back up. I'll go over the pros and cons of each scenario, then at the end of the video, I'll talk about some more consequences of this whole situation, and other things that get impacted. Without further ado, let's get started. Scenario 1. Teams go straight into the playoffs. So let's say the league stays paused for longer than expected, and now it's nearly summertime. If this is the case, then I think it's likely that we'll see the playoffs begin immediately when the NBA starts back up. In this scenario, the current playoff seeds will be the final playoff seeds, so the matchups will look like this. Now, it's safe to say these 16 teams in the playoffs will most likely be the same 16 teams if the season finished normally. I mean, the only exception is maybe Portland could catch up and snag the 8th seed or something if the season were to continue. Maybe the playoff seeds will be different, as a lot of teams have similar records now. But overall, starting the playoffs immediately after the league opens again, I think it's a decent idea if the NBA wants to stay on schedule and still try to finish the playoffs around June or July. We're not missing too much. If fans bought season tickets, teams could refund them for the remainder of the games, so that's not a big deal either. However, there is an issue with the fairness of this whole thing. So far, every team has played about 65 games out of the total of 82. However, every team's schedule is different. Some teams have had to play better teams. Some teams played worse teams, and they might have avoided playing some better teams if they were scheduled to play them in the last 17 games of the season. Basically, this stat is called strength of schedule. Here are the rankings up until the league suspension on March 11th. I'll use the Bucks as an example. Up until now, they've had a pretty easy schedule. They're in an easier division, but also because they've played easier teams in general up until now. They have a pretty tough remaining schedule as they were supposed to play teams like the Sixers, the Rockets, the Celtics, Mavs, Heat, and the Raptors twice. But now, if this scenario happens, they'll skip out on playing those tough teams. Perhaps their record is a bit more inflated. Obviously, the Bucks will likely be the first seed regardless, but I was just using them as an example. You could look through the strength of schedules of any team and see drastic differences. Basically, skipping the last 17 games abruptly will lead to some unfairness in the seedings. On the other hand, we might have seen Vince Carter's last ever NBA game. If there's no more regular season games, to have his career end like this? It's quite the story if we don't see the Hawks play again this season. Scenario 2, the regular season will resume and then the playoffs begin as usual. I feel like it's more likely to happen, but it will be a bit awkward. Let's say the NBA and all the teams don't want to deal with all the fans demanding refunds and they still want to earn some extra revenue from the remaining regular season games. This is the better scenario. And I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to see more games too. If the virus pauses the league for, let's say, 1 to 2 months, the regular season would start up again in April or May, and then the finals will be concluded in July or August. Now, the issue here is that the Olympics are in August. so they can't just go directly into the 2020 Tokyo Olympics after the NBA Finals. I mean, they still gotta practice, they gotta hold tryouts and all that stuff. However, around the world, a lot of people are assuming the Tokyo Olympics will be postponed as well. If that's the case, then it's fine if the NBA playoffs extend until August. If this scenario happens and the country recovers by May or June, fans and season ticket holders will still be able to attend the remaining regular season games, as they'll still be played. Then, the playoffs will go on as usual, just at a later date. The downside is that the players will have less time to rest and a shorter summer to get prepared for next season. But that extra rest is just going to be transferred to right now. I mean, granted, it's not good to be locked down and have to deal with this virus, but hey, it's something the entire world has to deal with, not just the players. Also, imagine this possibility. If the regular season starts up again in a few months, Kevin Durant could return. For NBA players, the timetable to recover from a major Achilles injury is about 10 months to a year or so. That lines up perfectly with Durant's recovery time. If the season goes until July or August, he could honestly come back for the playoffs. The Brooklyn Nets are in the playoffs already, so this is a scary possibility for every other team in the conference. Scenario 3. We all die. Nah, I'm just kidding, I think. Scenario 3. Games won't resume for a long time, and this season gets combined with next season. This is literally the worst situation that could happen for the NBA. Let's say the virus gets out of control so much that the country and the whole world will still be shutting stuff down well into the summer. Hypothetically, if people continue to get infected even throughout the summer and up until September, what the hell is gonna happen? Well, in this case, the 2020 regular season will not be finished anytime soon. The 2020 playoffs might not even happen, and the 2020 NBA champions will be the coronaviruses. Essentially, in this disaster scenario, we won't see any more games for the rest of the year. Then, when the 2020-21 season starts, we would combine the records of this season and add them onto the records next season. Basically, the current NBA records will be rolled over to the following season. The 2019-20 and 2020-21 seasons will be combined into one super season, and the 2021 playoff seedings will combine both records from those two seasons. Now, I do think that this would be the most exciting and unorthodox scenario. It is the least likely to happen. A lot of things would get messed up: the all-time stats, the players' contracts, and losing an entire year with no champions and no playoffs. That's freaking ridiculous. But if the virus does not go away, it could potentially happen. Also, if this season does end like this, what's gonna happen to the NBA draft? They still gotta do the draft, right? But March Madness also got suspended, so we won't get to see the prospects perform. It would also be kinda awkward. With those three scenarios out of the way, now let's talk about some other unintended consequences of this suspension. Over the last decade, the salary cap has jumped up drastically due to a combination of factors. The NBA struck a new TV deal with its broadcasters, the popularity of the sport continues to increase, and more people, especially the younger population, have been more and more interested in the NBA than ever before. As a result, the league's revenue skyrocketed. However, suspending the league and this pandemic itself will cause a huge drop-off in revenue. No games means no money, no ticket sales. Supply chains being interrupted means fewer merchandise and fewer equipment being sold. No basketball means a lot of people's jobs will be lost. Reporters will have nothing to talk about. The media won't have any games to cover. All of this will lead to a lower salary cap. Every team's salary cap for the 2019-20 season is $109 million. It's projected to be $115 million for the 2020-21 season. However, that projection was before the NBA suspended the season. If more regular season games do get cancelled, with all this lost revenue, the cap will probably be lower than the projected $115 million. And it's not even the virus either. The ratings have dropped throughout the entire NBA before the virus. According to Variety.com, in the 2019-20 season, viewership across ESPN, TNT, and NBA TV is down 15% compared to the year before. This was back in December, before the pandemic. Salary cap differences will force front offices to change up their rosters and new contracts. It might also be an opportunity. If the salary cap drops, you'd be able to sign players for cheaper than their expected value, so it goes both ways. That sums up the scenarios and consequences of this pandemic and the suspension of the NBA. Let me know your thoughts on the 3 scenarios I mentioned. Which one do you think is most likely to happen? Which one do you want to see happen? Thank you everybody so much for watching. Make sure to stay safe, and as always, I'll see you next time. Hopefully.